Welcome to BrandBusters with your hosts, James Schwinn and Sean Lee. Together, we bust open the latest in CPG, retail media, and life, or whatever the we want. And for today's episode, we got something special cooked up for ya. Extra spicy. Take it away, Sean. James is going to be taken away, as we also have James Pidhurney, who is the co-founder of Chalkless, the leading patented grip enhancement product for athletes. His entrepreneurial drive and engineering background led to securing a deal on Shark Tank with not one, but two sharks, including Mr. Wonderful himself. James, how are you today?
I am excellent. Thank you, guys. Love the intro.
Hey, thank you
for joining. And thanks, James, for covering the intro. I sound like I swallowed a frog after getting a cold from my kids. So I probably will be talking less today.
Sean has the sniffles for our listeners. So James, our paths crossed probably 5-6 weeks, maybe even longer. But the Arnold Sports Classic. So for those of you that aren't aware, this is a kind of massive kind of collection of like powerlifting, bodybuilding athletes that takes place in Columbus, Ohio. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is the one that has kind of backed it and organized it for years. It's a great event. And as I was there attending, actually came across Chalkless, who in my mind, objectively had probably one of the best booth activations as well. So, James, I want to get to the origin story, but first, like, tell us, I actually have the product here and I've been using it since I came to Arnold. But talk to the listeners about the activation. You had like the grip strength, like measuring or diagnostic device, but then you also had like Thor's hammer, which weighed like 180 pounds, to like a lot of proof of concept, like right there. So just walk the audience through that first.
Yeah, no problem at all. No, and thanks for having me, guys. So one of the things, this is constantly evolving, I would say. Every show is slightly different as we identify new areas, I think, to improve upon as far as getting our message across. Started off with the Thor's hammer relatively early on, where we just wanted a way for people to see or to feel the difference you would experience once you strip that slippery oil off your skin. So that was just kind of a neat little novelty. Everybody thought it was fun. But for the most part, the reaction we get, and I think it's probably similar to what you experienced, was like, oh, wow, this feels great. But there wasn't a way to quantify it. So we ended up going out and reaching out to third-party testing labs, looking at all these different ASTM standards for friction and grip and abrasion, all sorts of different things. I couldn't find anything out there that would be able to quantify the benefit that you're able to see when you remove that slippery oil and the additional friction you're able to get. So that's where we came up with the torque tester. That's, I don't know, third, fourth generation piece of equipment that you saw. Started off in my garage, just making it out of pieces of wood and an old piece of pipe that I had with a torque meter on it. Just trying to quantify what happens when you're able to grab something and twist and be able to measure how much torque you're able to generate, which is directly impacted by how much you slip. So that you saw there, we ended up bringing that to shows, just a freestanding little unit. And then we saw how much interest that attracted. So then we figured out, we need a way to be able to display it prominently. So we ended up creating a software program so we can broadcast it onto a TV. And now you can see it's going on, and it really attracts a lot of people as they come past the booth. They see lines plotting, they can see all kinds of like things happening. And then the natural progression to that, which we're working on now, is all that data is extremely valuable. And we're collecting a lot of it manually, but we're seeing on average over thousands of people we've tested right now, about a 65% improvement in the amount of torque you're able to generate. So we're collecting all that data, and we're starting to use it for things like working with the military for soldier safety. But that is an amazing data set, and it's so consistent regardless of the population we work with. So thank you for the compliments. The booth's getting a little busy because there's a lot of stuff going on in it, but I think it works well because it's a huge draw whenever we go places.
Well, I didn't even think about the data collection piece to like inform like case studies, or just like even like as you're trying to secure new contracts. So that also additional process. I think the trend for most events, you might have a celebrity that's attending, or in this case, like an athlete. Like, and I did meet Kai Green at one of the booths there as well. But I mean, that social proof beyond just like the spectacle of Thor's hammer. But again, like for me, I think it doubled on the torque test, I think my grip strength like doubled, like pre and post, like Chalkless, if I remember. I don't remember the exact reading, but I was like, okay, wow, it felt different, and the data is indicating. Now I'm going to go do like the spectacle thing. And I've got a video on my phone, which maybe we find a way to incorporate in this episode. But the product works. But go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I know for all the listeners, if you haven't realized yet, the product really helps with your grip strength, whether you're gripping something, whether you're lifting weights. A lot of people might use chalk if you're a CrossFitter or other things, but really an awesome product. And we're really big about kind of consumer insights or the jobs to be done that solve consumer problems. Tell us a little bit more about the origin story. How did you know like this was a true problem that had a big market of consumers that needed it addressed, and that you guys could figure out a solution to solve it? Because everybody's, you've carried something, your hands are slipping, you're doing pull-ups or, benching and your hands are slipping on the bar. Like obviously a pretty big problem, but what was the insight that led you to go and build a solution to solve it?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that it was this elaborate process and really thought this through, but it was, I would say, purely accidental. We had an existing business in the temporary construction product space for protecting floors and walls. And as soon as the national emergency hit for COVID, our business went to zero. We were killing it before that. And then all of a sudden, all our job sites got shut down. So I ended up meeting with Greg, my Chalkless co-founder. He's the entry point. That was our old company, our existing other company. Meeting with him in his driveway. We're talking what the heck are we going to do while these projects are shut down. And he's an avid, just call it tennis player. It's actually called paddle, which is a weird form of tennis where you're up on a platform and the court's heated and you play in the winter.
Not pickleball. It's like in between tennis and pickleball.
It's so strange. Yeah. And it bounces off the walls. I'm absolutely terrible at it. But that's his thing. And he was commenting on how his grip is always slipping. And my background's chemical engineering. And he said, hey, is there anything you can do to figure out why my hand keeps slipping? And is there something we can do about it? And fortunately, at this time, like I said, our business was pretty much dead at the moment. So I had a little bit of free time on my hands, and I love problems. That's my thing. I like fixing things. So I went off and started looking into, we eventually call it the science of grip. Like, why do your hands slide? And in looking at it, what's on your hands for the most part, unless you actually get something extra on you, is just salt, essentially salt, water, maybe a little bit of acid and oil. And that oils comes from something called your sebaceous glands, which is where all your hair follicles are, and it gets all over your palms. That's why when you rub your fingers together, there's this little bit of a slick feel. And that comes from rubbing your nose, touching your hair. You transfer it onto your hands, and it gives you that slippery feeling. So we thought, all right, well, obviously, if we can figure out a way to remove that oil, since your palms don't produce it, it's only where hair follicles are, and we can keep it off, then you've got a way to greatly enhance your grip for an extended period of time. So we just started playing around. I made little baggies of it and bottles and different chemical combinations, trying to figure things out, and we'd leave it at his tennis court for his friends to use. And they were loving it. They were, filling up their own little bottles and taking it home. So we said, all right, we'll make little bottles for people so they can carry it around with them. Again, we were just screwing around. There was no rhyme or reason to what we were doing. We were just helping some friends out and playing around while we were waiting for our existing business to come back. So I ended up trying to procure bottles, which is amazingly difficult. If you want to get a small amount, I say like 1 or 2 bottles, no problem. 50,000 bottles, no problem. 100 bottles, good luck. So I ended up having to go out to every Walmart, and I bought every little bottle of Gold Bond that they had, the little tiny travel sizes.
Yeah.
Brought them all back, dumped all the Gold Bond out, put them in a Ziploc, put our product in there, put it on, close it up, and then it wouldn't spill out. The holes in the top were too small. So then I take a drill and drill out all the little holes in the bottle to modify them. So our first, I have a shelf where I keep all of our bottles. I think it's probably 8 or 10 generations of bottles from when we first started off, but made all these little travel sizes. So people started carrying those around. And the feedback was so overwhelmingly positive. I've done business development for a long time with a lot of companies. And if I can get 60, 70% of people to love it, something we're doing, that's a home run. I mean, this thing is amazing. Let's put all of our effort behind it. And I would say it's safely upper 90%. Those that we can get to touch our product absolutely love it. So we thought, gosh, this is a lot more exciting than the temporary protection business, and the market's potentially significantly higher as more and more people tried it for random things. It was so much more than just paddle sports. Then we decided we've got to throw some weight behind this, and then ended up doing a big project with Major League Baseball, where they hired us to treat the baseballs instead of rubbing mud. And we worked on that with them for about a year. And again, very overwhelmingly positive feedback, and CrossFit and everybody else started using it while we were working with MLB. So we just said, all right, this has to be a business. So came up with a name and just started spending all of our time on that.
Man,
awesome.
I love all the diversity of applications, right? Like you've got athletes and rock climbing and probably golf or tennis and the paddle sports. But what's been the most unique? There has to be some application that surprised you, like what in the hell, or how did this person come up with it? But like any stories like that have come up from customers?
All right. Well, I'll say this: the most unique application that we've been notified of, I'm not going to publicly share because my kids might listen to this someday, so I don't need them hearing what this individual thought or said it was good at.
Yeah.
But we're constantly fielding, whether it be Instagram videos or emails with somebody that's telling us about how this is changing their life. I mean, there's the obvious ones, like say Spartan races, for instance. Like we're not allowed to be used in the elite level where they get paid or they get money for it, because what ends up happening, since Chalkless greatly enhances your grip, but it also repels water and anything that's water-based, like mud. So people will take it, rub it all over their hands and arms, jump in the mud pit, climb out the other side, and they're bone dry and clean. So they're scaling these obstacles and doing monkey bars with no problem at all. So it's not allowed for those that are getting the cash for it. But something that happened early on, like pole fitness. Never thought about that as a market, but that was one of the top ones in Amazon early on. People using it for that because it doesn't get chalk all over a pole or over your clothes. They love it for that. But then also things like knitting, like fine motor skills are needed. That dexterity in your slippery hands, people use it for that. Or coding, like people are on computers all day. Like your keyboard, if you look at it, you can probably even see like little shiny spots on your keys. That's the oil from your skin that's transferring.
Yeah, mine's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, it is. They rub it all over their fingers, and it makes it more comfortable. But I would, if I think about, here's a weird one. We had an equestrian reach out to us. Their hands on their own, never slippery. They said they're always fine with that. But the problem is a horse apparently sweats a lot, which I didn't know. So as the horse is galloping, sweat's flying off the horse and saliva and whatever, and that would get all over their hands and all over the reins, and that would cause them to slide. So they're covering their hands and forearms with Chalkless before they ride. So any of that horse sweat or saliva just hits and falls off. So it's just, I'll tell you, it's incredible, and it's also a bit overwhelming, the breadth of applications for Chalkless, which is, I'll tell you what, honestly, something that we struggle with a bit, we meet with quite a bit, is our, like how we position the brand. Even on Instagram, we have such a variety of things that pop up, everything from shooting guns, competitive athletes in the military, to little girls cheerleading. And they all love it for different reasons, and they don't necessarily all like the same content. So it's
not the same branding and go to market message for all those groups.
I'd say horse spit's probably the weirdest one I'm willing to share.
Okay.
Awesome. Have there been any, besides like the consumer applications, have there been any like industries or like business to business applications that you've stumbled upon or that have shocked you? Obviously you said the military, which makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
But anything like that you've seen?
That would surprise me. So commercial construction, that's probably a bit surprising, I would say. We have examples of pipe fitters and HVAC people that have reached out to us because they have essentially like a valve that's on a pipe and they can't get it loose, and they'll actually take Chalkless and rub it onto the pipe to increase the amount of friction between their strap wrench and the pipe. In fact, we actually had one of them reach out to us. They had this big steel strap wrench, and they sent a picture of it snapped in half. And they said they've been trying to loosen up a pipe, and they weren't able to do it because it kept sliding around it until they rubbed Chalkless on. And then all of a sudden, the pipe wrench actually snapped because it was able to grip on there so much. So that's one that we never really expected or even thought of doing. But we've had like Home Depots try it out, like their what do you call it? Like their handyman that travel around. And we've supplied them with some stuff to test out. Or it's not really an industry, but universities are turning out to be a pretty big one.
Yeah.
They love it in the weight room, and it transitions from the weight room onto the field. But lots of these strength and conditioning coaches are discovering that their athletes are able to work out a lot harder and safer once their grip is consistent, and they don't end up with like the injuries like tendonitis, whatnot from really squeezing too hard, like having that death grip. You don't need it when you have Chalkless, so that helps out in a bunch of other areas.
Now one thing maybe the average listener might not be aware of, but I believe there's a correlation with grip strength and longevity. Correct. I'm going to try not to butcher this word. I had to look it up while you're talking here, but slowing the process of immunosenescence. So essentially like helping prevent or slow the decline of like your immune defense associated with aging. So I think what is some of the correlation of the data that you have, might not be that in particular, but what is it? I think a lot of people try to prioritize like cardiovascular health, but maybe not necessarily like grip strength, especially as we kind of like age and decline and muscle atrophy happens.
So I would say we haven't tried to draw a direct correlation to anything like that, like any long-term health benefits. What we can say, and something we found, this is from some of our military contacts, is that grip is something that you subconsciously control. Like as you're holding on to something, whether it be a golf club, a rifle, a rope, as you start to slip, your brain makes you squeeze harder and harder and harder until you essentially fail. So whether you want to or not, as things get slick, you're fatiguing all these muscles. And it's not just like these muscles, it's the back of your arm, it's your elbows, it's your shoulders, all these things, all these little stabilizers are getting taxed. So if we have a way to make it so you get the same amount of grip, friction on something without having to squeeze really hard, things like endurance go way up and injuries go down because you're not sitting there, like I said, just taxing those little teeny muscles. Well, that's actually something we're looking to work with the military on right now, trying to kick off a project with them to do like a very detailed study with a population to see how we can impact those sort of benefits.
Well, and just to give like a personal testimony on the product, only using it for 4 or 5 weeks, but it has been integrated in like each of the workouts. I notice, especially doing like farmer's walks or like chin-ups or pull-ups, which Sean and I were talking about when you first came on, James. It's like, I feel like some of the other muscles fail, but I feel like my grip fails before the muscles fail. I feel like there's substitution as well that's going on versus actually being able to work it. So I feel a material difference and being able to like engage like the full muscle and actually like exhaust and push further because of incorporating this in the workout. So I think if people are like, this wouldn't make a difference, or I use gloves, like I think to actually build the muscle and the strength and the endurance around it, like I do think it is absolutely worth applying to anyone's routine. So anyways, my not unsolicited.
Well, thank you for that. And I'll tell you what, we hear that a lot, and I'll actually attest to it as well. I was never a chalk user, glove user, or anything like that. And as soon as I started testing the product and using it in the gym, I started hurting in areas that I never felt before because my grip hadn't given out when I was trying to do chin-ups or deadlifts or things like all of a sudden, like, wow, my elbows are like all these just weird muscles just started to ache because I was getting 5-6 more reps than I would have gotten before. So totally accurate there. And what we're finding with that torque tester data is the vast majority of people, I'd say there's maybe 1% of the population, and that's either due to some hereditary issue, because it's often in the family where they produce very little oil, or they may be on like a heavy duty drug of some sort. We find like Accutane, or that really diminishes the oil production. Those folks don't see really any benefit with and without Chalkless because they don't have any oil on their skin. But the vast majority of us are not strength limited when it comes to exercises. It's your ability to transfer energy or work from your hands to the implement you're grabbing. So when we increase that friction, it just makes a world of difference in what you're able to do.
Amazing. One thing you brought up earlier to go backpedal a little bit on content, because there's such a variety of applications for this. How are you in the marketing team navigating like content generation, like influencers, affiliates? Like how do you balance a marketing strategy that can kind of meet, because your ICP, like it could be so diverse. It could be moms, it could be power lifters, it could be all over the board. So
horseback riding,
horseback riders. Like how do you cover, all the breadth of niches that you guys have?
Sorry to our marketing team, but probably not well. and they'd openly admit to it. I think that's
a tough challenge, though.
It really is. It's an amazing problem. but it's also really good. I mean, we have such a huge amount of interest. It's how do you go about capitalizing that in a way that works with the algorithms? And we haven't quite figured it out yet. We're constantly trying to do it. And we get approached by some influencers, content creators with huge followings. But part of what we're finding is that a lot of these folks, they may have a lot of followers, but they don't have very good engagement, a lot of them. And they ask for such insane amounts of money to do things that as a startup, it's not viable. We would love to think, oh my, it would be amazing to have person X that has 300 million followers say, oh, I love Chalkless. But I don't know that we necessarily see as much of a benefit from that as we would like to think, versus we're starting to develop we call it like our performance team. Some folks that are like thought leaders in their particular area. They have still a decent sized following, but their engagement is just off the charts because the people that they talk to truly believe in them, and they know that they're not going to just come on and pitch something randomly. These are folks that have like discovered us like you did at the show and then reached out and be like, this has changed my life for X, Y, and Z reasons. Would love to help you guys promote it. And then we start working with them. And that's I think where the sweet spot where we want to be. And then we'll grow as a business with this person and their following. But it's a challenge that we are, I think just before this call, I was talking to somebody about it. It's a very hard thing to manage. Some of the biggest sales bumps we see are after someone totally unexpected meets us at a show, meets us at an event, and just puts something out on YouTube. And they have whatever, 100,000 followers, 80,000 followers. But those people religiously watch that individual and they believe what they say.
And I think there's a really good point there too, just for our audience. And we've heard it from a couple of people that have been on. I know the founder of Neuro said it, but as you're thinking about influencers, really finding people that actively use and like your product, not just like you sending it to them and saying, hey, can you give me a promo on it? Like somebody that has used it, sought you out and said, hey, I really like it. Like that's the way to go, because they're actually going to care and they can actually speak to it coherently versus the pay to play that talk about it once and you can tell they're not really that into it and never talk about it again. For sure.
We were enticed or actively looking into some of those ones that just had huge followings, and it just we decided not to pursue it in the end. So many folks are out there that are passionate about the product, and they pitch it without even getting anything from us. But those are the folks that we want to work with, and we've, like I said, we've found some really good ones so far, and continue to search. So, wish I had a great answer for you there, but our biggest problem is public awareness. And getting people to realize that there is a better way, because so many folks, myself included, never used chalk, didn't like it was a mess, didn't want to use gloves, just accepted that my grip is what it is. And it absolutely does not have to be. Once you get rid of that slick oil, it's a totally different world. But until someone touches it for themselves, it's very hard to believe it. And that's where it's tough to get 300 million samples out across the US.
I mean, you kind of have a double-edged problem, right? Because you got to make them aware that the problem exists or that there's a job to be solved for if they're currently not doing it today or don't realize that there is. And then once they realize that that's a problem, realize that your product solves that and brings a huge benefit to them. So you're really educating people about a brand new category of product and educating them about your product at the same time.
Which was not part of the original plan. We just tried it. The stuff's amazing. We're like, everybody's going to love this. But the education piece is significantly more onerous than we thought it would be.
So speaking of that, we feel like every founder, co-founder we've interacted with thus far has like shit moment, maybe 10 of them along the way. Were there any of those that you guys have run in? Like, how did you, what was the case? How did you guys overcome it?
Okay. Let's see. So my oh crap moments probably were, I'll say there's probably pre-Shark Tank and after. I guess I could probably give you like two different times.
Yes.
Reason being, as an engineer, I really like standardization processes. I like to set something up and do it the same way every time, so it's repeatable. So when there'd be deviations in the process, that would be kind of a shocking, I was like traumatizing is too strong a word, but it would be something that would definitely cause me some angst as we're dealing with these sort of issues. And I mean, we would, like a manufacturing problem, for instance, where there was an issue where they ground up all of our particles. and we had tens of thousands of bottles that were being shipped out, and we needed to recall them. They never got to customers, thankfully, but we were able to get them back. But it delayed a bunch of orders, and it was something that was totally unplanned. Like, crap, what are we going to do? Or we had one of our spaces that were in, it was a shared space with another company. The building ran into some problems with a government agency, so the building was raided, and then we were told, you need to get out. So then suddenly this space that we were using disappears. So what the heck do you do with that? So this is a good problem, I guess. When we first started to Major League Baseball, I treated, say, a couple dozen balls by hand with Chalkless, and these things are absolutely amazing. You touch these balls, pitchers handle them, they were great. And then they say, all right, let's proceed. Spring training's in like a week or a month, I believe it was, a month, 6 weeks, and we're going to need 30,000 of them. So suddenly we had no facility. I had no process to really scale it up. But as a new business, you don't want to say no. And I conceptually had an idea. So I said, all right, let's do it. And then all of a sudden, reality strikes.
You got to figure out how.
30 seconds after the call ends, and you need to start cranking. But, even things as silly as, I remember when we spelled Chalkless wrong on a production bottle, and we get it in and we're like, oh man, we spelt our own name wrong. Looking at this, like, oh crap, how do you deal with it? But those things don't even hit the radar anymore for me. I think after going through the whole Shark Tank experience, where so much of it was just so fast, so intense, things were never going to be perfect. You just had to just roll with it. And I really came to appreciate just being able to take a breath, do the best you possibly can, and 99% of the time, that's more than good enough. Just try your hardest. And as such, I think I've been able to gloss over, that's not the right word, but not be as stressed out about stuff as I once was, when those moments do happen daily, practically.
If you run a business, you own a business, that they happen daily, they happen weekly. You just got to get good at figuring out what to go solve and what's actually a crisis and what's not.
Yeah, right now we get a bunch of people that are trying to, because of Shark Tank drove a lot of this, because of how good the product is. A lot of people are trying to create knockoffs, copy our branding, copy our bottles. And this is all over the world. And that used to really throw me for a loop prior to Shark Tank. But I've just come to accept that the reason they're doing it is because our product's amazing. Yeah, we've got some great IP, so I'm not too concerned about it. Now it's more of a nuisance than anything else. But that's the type of thing that at one point would have really ruined my day, but now it's just something you just work through.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the Shark Tank experience. We've had a few people on here. I know Brooks Powell from Cheers was on, and his comment was, if they would have said I had to pay $1 million in marketing budget just to appear on the show, I would have done it, because he's like, I think I got like 7-fold back from the appearance. What was your experience like? Obviously, you got a deal or got some offers. How did that impact the business immediately after, once the episode aired?
Oh yeah, no problem. So I'll tell you, they talk about it. They call it, I think, the Shark Tank effect is what they call it, and it is absolutely a real thing. The moment that show airs, you suddenly get a big boost in sales. So much so that they encourage you to like a launch party. They tell you to schedule it, which I'll tell you is an incredibly stressful event, because you, as the founder that was on the show, you have no idea what that episode is going to look like. So you gather all your friends, your investors, your family, everybody be around to watch an episode, and you have no clue if they're going to show you doing something dumb, or behind the scenes they're talking about you being a moron or something like that. So I'm sweating there just like everybody else, even though I know I know we got a deal. Nobody else around us does, because we're not allowed to share it.
Yeah. How many hours were you there for that? Like the 10-minute segment that you're on?
Or gosh, we were just slightly less than an hour. I think we were taping. Yeah. And it was cut down to 8-ish minutes.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and again, a lot of the stuff, like all this stuff that I'll say is I would say publicly available, because one of the things they do is they have an amazing NDA process, and I'm bound for life to just never talk about stuff that isn't publicly disclosed or you see on the show. But you can definitely see how being on Shark Tank will either make or break a company. A lot of it comes down to your ability to manage that growth very rapidly and unpredictably. because what they do is you tape, and then they say, all right, we'll let you know if you're going to air. So you don't know for that entire season if you're going to air until I think you get 2 or 3 weeks notice is what they'll tell you. So you just go home hoping that you were, compelling enough and interesting enough that they'll put you on TV. And then you have to decide, do I want to build the infrastructure and put the marketing and the inventory behind a potential air date? Because there's no way I couldn't, find out and then start producing 100,000 bottles, in preparation for something 3 weeks later. It just isn't possible. So you have to decide and kind of go out on a limb. Do I want to invest all this money and time for something that may or may not happen?
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, we did. So that was a good thing.
Now, on that, and I don't know if you can disclose this. So, and just for listeners, if you want to tune in, this was what season 16. It was back in 2020. It was 2024 that you guys aired fairly recently.
Yeah, November. So I think it's season 16, episode 5.
Okay, so definitely, listeners, if you haven't tuned in, tune in.
Yeah, we'll drop a link in our show notes
thank you.
that we can find on YouTube.
And now you got Mr. Wonderful himself, and then Rohan as well. How hands-on? Well, one, so when they get the investment, right? I think you guys took a $400K, for 4%. How do they? What do you allocate that to? And then do they monitor that after the fact as well to make sure that, hey, that 400K is being deployed? How hands-on, in the event you secure their investment, are they?
So I would say it's different depending upon which sharks you get and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Mr. Wonderful is by far more on the social media and marketing side, I would say. And Rohan, very heavily towards athlete endorsements and getting folks to probably invest in Chalkless in a subsequent round, get some of these athletes to become owners, which we think would be beneficial to us. The process, you see what happens on the show. And then after that, really, I think is when the work kind of starts. Yeah. Because then at that point, then the lawyers and business teams from both sides start interacting, and they need to go through and hammer out all the details as far as how to make what you said on TV actually a reality. So that progresses for a fairly extensive amount of time. And then after which, part of what they do is they define how will you use this money? What will it be used for? When do you get it? So in our case, almost all of it's going to be put towards marketing. Fortunately for us, we didn't really have a need. We had plenty of cash. We had investors. We already had, our business was growing quickly. So for us, it was more a matter of, we wanted to find, we said on the show, a strategic partner. We needed somebody that could help us grow in the consumer product space where neither of us had really been before. And then also help open doors that we couldn't call the CEO of Dick's or something like that and say, hey, let's have a meeting. But someone like Kevin, he can reach out to anybody he wants, or Walmart, or whomever, or mention it the next time he's on Fox News, talk about chocolate. So these guys had a reach that we just had no ability to access. So that's really what we're excited about, is being able to work with them on things like that. But I would say just also for those, actually, most people haven't been on the show. So I'll say this, the process is incredibly rigorous that they put you through from the very beginning to the end. And I don't know how a lot of companies do it, to be honest. I mean, we had a pretty good team, a very good team, a pretty good sized team rather, to help us work through it internally. But the weekly assignments and activities that you have to do to continue to progress through the process, they challenged us in a lot of ways. And I can honestly say that, I mean, we became a much better company coming out of it, even if we didn't air, just because of the rigor associated with that process to make sure all of our ducks were in a row.
Wow.
It was, I don't know if I'd say $1 million. I don't know if I would have paid $1 million for it. Maybe now that we've aired, but you wouldn't know. Yeah. I'll tell you what, it would have been the most disappointing and expensive endeavor if we didn't air. Yeah. Oh my word, that would have been just crushing. Yeah, I'd like to think about it.
One of the other things that you got, because this product is patented,
it is.
I believe. I think there's only been 1 or 2 other founders that have had a patented product. I think so. Two questions with that, how difficult is that process, and then also, do you run into patent trolls, where sometimes you see people you put one out, and then a lot of people try to jump on the product now that it's available, because some people hold back. They determine, should I patent, should I not patent? Any kind of any opinions, either obviously you guys went forward with it, but like the positive, negative of going the patent route.
So in our particular case, let's see, when we first started playing around with it, whether or not we could get some IP was a deciding factor in how much time and resources we were going to put behind this. We were very fortunate that the claims we put out for our patents were I think they were all granted. Our lawyer was pretty surprised, as was I, when I was looking into just doing the research on the grip space. And there was a huge amount of, they call it white space, like a big chunk of the IP world nobody was landed in. So we were able to grab onto a whole lot of stuff that historically, when I've done patent work, it'd be like a little incremental improvement on something else that was out there. You're trying to make little tweaks to be able to get like a little piece. We grabbed onto a giant chunk of opportunity, I guess I could say, that made it worthwhile. I'm a huge fan of patents for a multitude of reasons, but I think in order to be able to devote the time and money necessary to make something successful, if you're always worried that somebody's going to steal your idea instantly and start just undercutting you, especially with the way the internet works, I don't think I would have had the confidence to give up what we were doing and start working on this. I really don't.
Yeah.
So the filing, I think you said how easy, like the filing part's actually pretty easy. That's simple. Securing the patent is tough. And that's the one where it takes, how did I think about it? Try to describe it to somebody else. It takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of patience. And then it takes even more money and even more patience as you work through the years of getting that going. So I think the standard wait time is more than 2 years right now. So even in doing the expedited track, it was still close to 2 years, I think, before we got our first rejection. And we were told more often than not, that happens every time. It's almost like the examiners are incentivized. They probably are. To say no. And then you have to come back and challenge everything and more billable hours. But the key to all that, what I found was, like I used to say, like, you need to have a really good lawyer. And I think it's more than just having the person has to really know the law, but we have one now that is so, like, he uses the product and he loves it and really understands it well. So when it comes time to drafting patents or adjustments or going after somebody that is actively violating our patents, our lawyer is amazing. And because he knows the product just as well as I do, far more so than you could do, just doing some online service or some random person. So developing a relationship with this guy and spending the time to really work with him all the way through has made a lot of this possible.
That's great. And now that you've kind of been on Shark Tank and gotten that bump and boost, you have the IP to protect the product. Where do you guys spend the bulk of your marketing dollars? Is it on Amazon? Is it through like Meta and Instagram ads? Is it through influencer? Like, where are you seeing some of your best success?
So that's another one that Shark Tank changes everything. So that's something that we never were able to plan on. And then what these guys are able to do just opens up so many doors that we wouldn't have had before. Like, we never would have thought about getting ourselves at, the Falcons Christmas party or something like that, where there's a bowl of chocolates there for players to handle. And I mean, like the just totally random stuff that we weren't able to plan on that we're trying to figure out now. In the past, it was mostly Amazon direct to consumer. That's where most of our business was. Internationally, we were selling a fair amount into Japan. That's one of our earlier distributors, great group out there for golf specifically. But since the show, international interest has gone up significantly. So we're constantly fielding inquiries and setting up new distributors all over the world, which is nice, as is retail. So some of those are starting to come online. And that's another one where the Sharks are able to help us out, or we can have, like, I use Dick's as an example. Like, we're on the Dick's website. But it'd be great to be in the Dick's stores. So being able to tap into someone like Kevin O'Leary to be able to reach out to them and help facilitate that is going to be extremely helpful, and has completely changed the way that I think we're looking at the business going forward. So all that is actively evolving as you change from pre-Shark Tank to post-Shark Tank, because it's definitely different.
That's great.
Now, I mean, there's been, I think, a ton of insight. And I think there's a lot of brands and founders out there that aspire for Shark Tank that are trying to navigate the patent process. I think, and also like just develop like the broad base of that, like have a product that is loved by so many different groups out there. I guess in closing, like if there was one piece of advice for someone either on the verge of making the entrepreneurial leap or someone that's like been at it but just hasn't had their breakthrough yet, like what would you advise those individuals?
Oh boy, one piece of advice. I was just saying, I just talked to a university up here not too long ago. I think they asked me a similar question, and I paused with that as well. As far as one piece of IP is a huge thing. Make sure you focus on that. Don't go around talking about how great your idea is to friends, family, because once you do, and it's a public disclosure, you really can't do much anymore. So as hard as it is, keep your lips closed and get things secured before you go out there and start talking about it. I'd also say, make sure you do something. People say, don't do what you love. And I honestly don't believe that that's the way to do it. You should do something that you're really good at. And that's how I think you'd be successful as an entrepreneur. Like there's lots of things that I love that I couldn't make a living at, but I'm really good at like fixing problems and being able to find an opportunity with Chalkless and having a team behind me that's able to help out with where my shortcomings has been great. So make sure you're doing something that you'd be happy to do on your worst day, because there's going to be some bad ones and you need to figure out a way to continue to march forward, because there's lots of highs and lots of lows, very little in the middle. I think I don't know that I'm ever like
there really is
along. It's either great or pretty terrible. And fortunately the greats are outweighing the terribles at this point. So it's definitely worth it, but it's, I think just being kind of comfortable in your own skin, and I'd say making sure your family and those around you are bought into the whole process as well. That's a big one, because your life will be different, and it's definitely not a 9-to-5 job. I'd like to say it's 24/7, but I have a lot of freedom. I can kind of do what I want when I want, but there's also random.
It's always
times,
on.
2:00 in the morning, something comes up, got to go.
Yeah.
Get down to the workshop and build something. See ya. And my family's great. They've been very supportive of that stuff. Gosh, yeah, that was more than one thing, so I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. No, that's okay.
No, that's great. No, that's awesome. And James, this has been a great conversation. I think our audience is really gonna find it helpful. And for everybody that's listened, if you do one of the many activities that would benefit from this, we'd encourage everybody to, go and try Chalkless as a product and help James out. And
yeah, please do.
Yeah,
thank you.
If you found the conversation helpful, as always, listen to us on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. Go to thebrandbusters.com and please share this episode with friends, families, colleagues, anybody that you think would learn from Greg's experience. And thank you again for joining us, or not Greg, James. Sorry, it's my cold that's talking.
No problem at all.
James' experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anybody knows The Rock, one of the Kardashians, feel free to share it with them. Have them post. I wouldn't turn it away.
Yeah. Dwayne, Kim, you listening?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Rock, get The Rock in his gym in Hawaii. I feel like that would be, sales would go through the freaking.
It certainly would, but yeah.
Cool.
Oh, well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and appreciate everybody for listening.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Have a good one.